When I was about 5 years old, I met my adoptive great-grandfather for the first time. I called him Papa Don, as did everyone else I knew. The thing is, Papa Don was one of my favorite people to visit when we left North Carolina to head to Maryland for the holidays or for my birthday during the short period of time I got to live in North Carolina. Because you see, as a child, my favorite show to watch was Thomas the Tank Engine. No, not that one. Nor that one. Yeah, this one right here. I always loved seeing the model trains go around the tracks of the island of Sodor, as George Carlin
takes the cake, you know? Say, boy, he really takes the cake. Where? Where do you take a cake? To the movies? You know where I would take a cake? Down to the bakery to see the other cakes.
Yes, that George Carlin narrated the story. And the thing that made visiting my Papa Don special was that he had a massive collection of Lionel trains. All sorts of different engines, cars, tracks, diorama pieces, and train magazines at his house. And whenever I would come over, he would come and have me sit on his lap in the train room, and we would just play with his trains together. You know, he let me run the switch to make the trains go faster or slower, and anything, press the whistle to make it whistle and everything. And just, we had a great time. For context on how much he loved his Lionel collection, he had an entire room, obviously, dedicated to the trains, right? He had a big diorama set up, but he also had shelves in his house that were about maybe 6-7 feet in the air that went all along the main rooms and hallways of his house. And wherever you were, if he had them running, you could see them. It didn't matter if you were in the train room or not. You could just see the trains running around. And I loved all of it. I loved getting to spend time with him and visit him, even if I didn't understand a whole lot about the man or where he came from as a person. It broke my heart when he died. And as one final gesture of love, in his will, he left me his entire collection of Lionel trains, along with the tracks necessary to run them, and the massive collection of train magazines that he had as well from Lionel and other train manufacturers. So that way, if I wanted to continue collecting and building track sets, I could. And in those magazines, I found a train that I would always desire. That in my youth, and honestly even today, I reach and grasp for, like Jay Gatsby standing on his pier reaching for the green light that's always just out of reach. Lionel number 628029. Union Pacific's 4884 steam locomotive. The big boy. On average, a locomotive from Lionel from the 90s, even up until today, is about maybe a foot long, if not a foot and a quarter, 0.381 meters for my viewers who don't use Freedom units, which overall is a nice size for most track layouts, I would say, but the big boy takes things to a whole new level when it comes to size. The engine in the tender, which is the part that holds the coal, comes out to a whopping 32 inches in length, or 0.81 meters. And that's, once again, literally just the engine and the tender alone. Nothing else. No boxcars, no passenger cars, no cabooses, nothing. And it is a massive locomotive that, even today, still ranges in the price of $2,000 to $3,000, hence why it will more than likely always elude me. However, even though I just went on a little bit of a ramble about a toy train, today's video is not about Lionel, or about Thomas the Tank Engine, though if you want me to talk about them, I'd be more than happy to. Just let me know in the comments. Today's video is about the real thing. The last giant of the American Western railroads that is actually still alive and still operates to this day. The big boy. The big boy line of locomotives was founded from 1941 to 1944 with a total of 25 locomotives being built to haul heavy freight in the Wasatch Range between Ogden, Utah and Green River, Wyoming. Now, at the time, a single big boy cost around $265,000 to manufacture, which translated to today's money would be $5,489,457 just for one, and they built 25 of them. The amount of money Union Pacific was able to throw at the big boy project just goes to show how much money they were making at the time. Like, respectfully, the European mind cannot comprehend building and operating a train this huge. Like, don't get me wrong, y'all have some beautiful trains over there, especially some beautiful steam engines. The ones that immediately come to my mind are the Mallard Steamliners and the Flying Dutchman. But I'm really sorry. When compared to this piece of pure, unadulterated American engineering and ingenuity, there is no comparison that can be made. Now, y'all might be saying, Cecil, this train you're talking about is neat and all, but given the cost it took just to make the damn thing and the sheer size of it, what's the point? Why on earth use so much money to make such a massive locomotive? And the answer to that, my friends, lies in the geography of the Wasatch Mountains in Utah, more commonly referred to by their group name, the Rocky Mountains, which are famous for their steep inclines that just keep going mile after mile after mile after mile. Under previous setups, Union Pacific would have to have multiple engines work together in a single train to overcome sections of the Rockies, which, while it was possible to do, wasn't a great solution due to the stress that it put on the engines with, the wear and tear of constantly going up and down the Rockies, combined with the overall inefficiency of the idea as a whole, because yeah, you've got 3 engines all working together pulling this train up the Rockies, but that's 2 engines that you could have do something else, right? The Big Boy line changed everything. For the first time in the history of Union Pacific, they had a locomotive that could conquer the steep inclines of the Rockies and do it by itself, with the length of the train when fully loaded averaging around 5 miles in length, or 8 kilometers. Can you even comprehend that? The sheer size and strength of this engine, and not only that, it was able to average on flat terrain 80 miles an hour, or 128 kilometers per hour. Just a 5-mile long wall of steel and steam going 80 miles an hour. Notably on flat terrain. You can't really do that on a mountain just because it's, number one, it's unsafe. Number two, gravity doesn't really work like that, unfortunately. But like I said, flat terrain, this thing could pull a 5-mile train 80 miles an hour. This train literally lived by the mantra of, I'm going to keep going, and neither you, God, or anyone else is going to stop me, because if you do, I'm going to turn you into a cloud of red mist on impact. You want to know something else that's absolutely insane about all this? These engines were created in 1941 all the way into 1944, when America was on its wartime economy setup. Uncle Sam literally had to look at Union Pacific and say, you know what? Sure. We're over here making bombers and fighters and tanks and destroyers and aircraft carriers to help turn more bad guys into baloney mist and put more warheads on foreheads than any other country out there. But sure, here's the supplies that you need to make these big boy engines of yours. Absolutely crazy. And I still don't understand how Union Pacific got the permission to do this. Because, when you're on a wartime economy, everything is like super regulated. Like everything's rationed out. You got people who are like, finding scrap metal in their backyard and anywhere they can find it just to go turn into the local war bond office. So you're like, hey, here you go. Here's this. Here's what we're doing for the war effort. Go turn these into bullets and stuff. And they somehow convinced, like, I mean, just the sheer size of these things alone, they still somehow managed to convince Uncle Sam to be like, hey, yeah, here, go ahead and do it. Make 25 of them. Unfortunately, though, all good things come to an end. From the 1920s going well up into the 1930s and 40s, steam engines were being phased out overall in exchange for diesel engines, because overall, diesel engines, as much as I do not like them or in how they look and just the overall aesthetic of them, are typically more efficient and a bit easier to maintain, right? And in 1962, the last of the big boy engines were retired from service in Union Pacific. Out of the 25 big boy engines, 8 of them were saved from being scrapped, 7 of which you can find in static displays in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Denver, Colorado, St. Louis, Missouri, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Frisco, Texas, and Omaha, Nebraska. The 8th one, however, is special. For the longest time since the big boys had been officially retired, Locomotive 4014 had found a quiet retirement home in the Rail Giants Train Museum, located in Pomona, California. That was until Union Pacific came a-callin' and brought him back home. And in 2019, the rails shook once again with the thunder of the last giant. To this day, the big boys hold the world record for the largest, heaviest, and most powerful operational steam locomotive in the world. And if I could, I would do almost anything to learn how to run the big boy and work for Union Pacific and operating it during its excursion runs. These engines are, in my opinion, a timeless part of the American legacy, and the lengths that we will go to get things from point A to point B in the fastest and most efficient way possible. Thank you all so much for tuning into this video. See you all next week when I ramble on about something else I find interesting. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and if there's something you want me to talk about on here that you think I might find interesting, leave a comment and I might just do that. Bye!